Authorities in Mthatha still responding to the devastation caused by last week's floods, which have left at least 90 people dead and many others displaced. Humanitarian efforts are continuing as affected families start rebuilding their homes. A memorial service, we're told, to pay tribute to the victims is planned for this Thursday. Watching all these developments is our senior SABC News reporter, Chriselda Lewis, live to us from Mthatha. And Chriselda, we can still see quite clearly the absolute devastation left by these floods.
And Ayanda, as I indicated a bit earlier on, the pictures that we've seen on our screens over the past couple of days certainly do not do justice to the devastation that we're witnessing here on the ground. This just but one of the houses that was completely destroyed in the devastating floods. We speak about people having to rebuild their lives, but in areas like here in Tikolini, there's absolutely nothing to rebuild. Many of the residents in this area have taken shelter at the community halls that have been, used to house them for the past couple of days now. And if we just ask my colleague Sinetemba to move towards our right-hand side, where you'll also see that there are vehicles here. Some of the structures of these homes, due to the strong current of those flood waters, these brick homes completely collapsing on amongst other vehicles here. You see some of the furniture has also been swept right outside. There's absolutely, if I can say, no proof of life in this particular area. There are still some of the residents who were affected by these floods that are still missing from some of these homes. And it also happens to be, the family of a father that we spoke to a little bit earlier on this morning, together with his two children that are still missing. But unfortunately, one of the children passed away. So the families are now trying to, make arrangements to have those who have passed away in these devastating floods, be buried this coming weekend. But it's very difficult for households such as that, Ayanda, where there are still some missing relatives, as the teams, the recovery teams, are still in different parts of Mthatha, still trying to, see if they can't find anything. A bit earlier on, I did indicate that the Gift of the Givers had brought in heavy machinery, including a TLB, in order to scour through the debris to see if there aren't any remains that they're able to find. So there's absolute devastation in this particular area. A picture that can be painted here, Ayanda, you will see there are shoes that have been swept just outside here. There are heaters, that have also been, there are children's belongings here that are also on the ground. These families have lost absolutely everything in these floods. And we know that, a number of government ministers have been deployed to this area. We understand this is but one of the, as we heard from the Human Settlements Minister, Thembi Simelane, yesterday, that they're looking at about 2,000 houses, possibly 2,000 houses that have been affected by all of this. And the current, so strong, these are brick houses, Ayanda, that have been affected, by this. These homes unable to withstand. I'm just going to walk towards this direction. I'm going to ask my colleague, Sinetemba, to come with me. This is, a television, and this will tell you that this is just but some of, the belongings. This is actually a television set, that has been swept through here. Furniture, those are cupboards that have been swept from inside the structure here behind me. And there's absolutely, if you had to go inside there, Ayanda, you'd be shocked at what you will find. There is absolute devastation here. Many families are still trying to come to terms with what has happened. While the assistance keeps coming in, for many of these families, you certainly cannot tell, where some of the additional help is going to come from. It's going to take a very long time to have these residents housed in the different locations where they have been housed over the past couple of days. I'm going to ask my colleague Sinetemba to show you. It's even worse towards my left-hand side. These houses, you cannot believe, Ayanda, what you're about to see. My colleague Sinetemba will zoom in a little bit. You cannot believe that that was actually a house That was a house completely razed to the ground. That was a standing structure. There's not a single brick that is standing at this particular time. Not a single brick. All these bricks absolutely razed to the ground. You will see some of the young people who managed to also escape. There are survivors of this tragedy gathered there to see if they are not able to take some of the zincs that are there to try and rebuild something. Here, absolute devastation in this particular area. There's been nowhere. Some of the people who've been housed in these community centres do not want to be moved from there because they say they want to be close to the areas where their homes have been razed to the ground. There seems to be a glimmer of hope that they will be able to rebuild, but it's going to take a lot of resources to try and ensure that that does happen. I'm going to bring in Mthatha Wilson. Mthatha Wilson is still waiting for news on the disappearance of his son and the two daughters of his, the two children of his son. Let's speak to Mthatha Wilson this morning. Mthatha Wilson, siyabulela kakhulu ngexesha lakho ukuthi uthethe nathi namhlanje apha ku SABC. Hayi kunzima ukuthi ubuyele kule ndawo apho unyana bengekamtholi khona kulapha apho kwenzeke khona lento ebhlungu kangaka tata.
kunjalo nkosazana. Kunzima uba ndibuyele emva ekhaya kwelase Elliotdale apho ndisuka khona. Ndifike ngomvulo apho abantwana bam abakabonakali, mnye ke osabonakeleyo. Ayincedi into loo nto ke olima umbona emasimini uphume nesikhwebe esinye ngangasuze nazo zonke. Ndisenethemba ke ba bawubonakala abantwana bam. Yiyo loo nto ndizoma kule ndawo ndizojonga uba kwenzeke intoni bekuphi. Naxa into yenzeke ndingekho ndiyiva ngoyibaliselwa. Jonga uba ubaliselwe. Xa ujonga kwecala lasenxele ubheke ezantsi, izindlu zilele phantsi, ayizo zamazinga ezazindlu. Zezitena kuwe izitena zakhupha abantu ezindlini zabaphosa emlanjeni. Inhlani engeke ngabikho naba bam bakwelo qela. Ndisenethemba kuba bazawubonakala. Zange umuntu afe ebonakala uba ukuwe kule ndawo angabonakali. Kubhaqwe nethambo lakhe ke. Enkosi.
Inkosi kakhulu Mthatha Wilson. Mthatha Wilson is one of the devastated parents who's still waiting for news on the disappearance of his son, together with his son's two children. They are still missing, and he says he still, holds on to the bit of hope that he has. That, and in a loose translation, Ayanda, he says, even if they can find their bones, it would be okay for him. It would have some closure, because one of the children also from that home was found, but unfortunately had already passed away. So you have a family that is making preparations to bury one of their children, but two others and their father is still missing. These structures here, Ayanda, are absolutely very difficult to maneuver through, and especially because the structures themselves are not stable, and understandably so. I'm going to thread quite carefully here, and you would see that some of the fences here also, some of the fences have been raised. You cannot even see which fence separates house to house. And that will tell you about the difficulties that these families have been through in this particular area. I think one of the gentlemen there, Molweni, ukhona beke wasinda apha kuni? Khawusondele. Away. Ayanda, you'll just bear with me. One of the survivors, and I'm going to ask one of my colleagues to just check on this particular one of the survivors there who's now trying to rebuild what they can. That house on the one side completely devastated. Now they're just going to try and see if they cannot put together a bit of what they can salvage at this particular point. Khawusondele bhuti, kancinci nje. Ayanda, it's very difficult, to talk about this devastation without speaking to the people who've been greatly affected by this. And I'm just going to try and come in here and just hope that don't get swallowed by some of this mud. It's a bit unstable here where I am. Keput, konjani? Ewe. Ndikendeva bhuti ba ungomnye waba bantu bebeke basinda kule ntlekele yalapha bhuti wam. Ndibona noko nizama ukulungisa phaa ekhayeni, nibone ukuthi ningakwazi uqokelela ntoni nje ukuthi nike nizame ukulungisa mhlawumbi oko kuncinci nikwazi ukulungisa.
Siyazama sisi kodwa sizama nje kubuhlungu. Silahlekelwe nabantu besibazi. Kunhlekele bendikhona enzekile. Nami nisemanzini lawo. La ukhupha nomnye umuntu kemanzini. But nje kubuhlungu sisi. Kubuhlungu unzima nothetho. Kubuhlungu nyana.
Wena bhuti bakhona abantu olahlekelwe ngabo apha kule area?
Bakhona sisi but ayo family yam but umakhelwane.
Umakhelwane. Ewe. Hayi manje ngakugcina ibhuti wami ndakubona ukuthi noko nisazama apho.
Sazama sisikakhulu.
Ewe, inkosi kakhulu bhuti. Ke bhuti inkosi. This gentleman saying that they're trying to salvage whatever they can, hoping that some of those bricks, perhaps that they can salvage from this absolute devastation, would be able to assist in trying to rebuild a structure that would be able to house them. He says he was part of when the waters had come into this area quite strongly. He was one of the people that was holding on for dear life. He is one of the survivors of this tragedy here. I mean, this street will tell you. You take a look at these zincs that are just here behind me, and that will tell you if the zincs themselves could not withstand, what more for these structures here. This particular area here in Tekolini is completely devastated, and the bricks of these houses falling onto every single structure that is here, including the cars that I had shown you. There is furniture outside. You can see that there was proof of life here. But while the number of deceased, we understand at this point, is at 90, we still have those rescue teams, Ayanda, that continue to search several of the areas. But many of the concerns that have been raised by these communities is as the hours move on, that glimmer of hope certainly is dwindling for some of these affected families. And Tatu Wilson a bit earlier on telling me that it's very difficult for him to come back to this space because it is where the incident took place. He was not here, but it's difficult to come back to the area where his son and his son's two children are still missing. The only thing left, and you might not be able to see from where I am, is the vehicle belonging to his son, which has completely toppled, which gives you an indication of how strong the current had been when this tragedy had unfolded. We take a look here. Once again, all these houses towards this particular area, extremely affected. All these people housed in those community centres that have been set aside for them to be housed, having been uprooted basically from their homes into areas where certainly there's no privacy there. They've moved with their children, those who've managed to survive. There is some food that is being made available for them at this stage, but you cannot but imagine, Ayanda, what it's like to go through such a tragedy, to have to leave your home. But obviously, some of the others, and at this particular stage, in terms of the press releases that we've seen from the provincial government, is that while we talk about the number of those who have passed away, those who are victims of this tragedy, there are still many others that are unaccounted for at this particular stage.